for obtaining information for an evaluator is questionnaires. And it is important to learn how to construct questionnaires. Constructing questionnaires is again a very hello, I think I should start it all over again. It's now my video is coming to you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, so we will be studying questionnaires and particularly construction of questionnaire. Whatever kind of questionnaire you do, it's better to go systematically and follow a few steps. Hmm? So I will share my PowerPoint with you. So today's topic will start with constructing questionnaires and then we'll move on to the models of evaluation. There are some ready-made models that are available, and there are some activities that are involved in constructing questionnaires. Uh, First of all, you must make a decision that deciding to use a questionnaire, like that, you have to decide, you have to see pros and cons and decide where that questionnaire would be the best method to use in the current scenario or situation. Then you have to plan about constructing the questionnaire, and naturally then you will have to administer it, send emails or distribute it physically and get it, and then you collect the data, collecting the data and then in analyzing it and interpreting the results. So these are the four activities that you need to do. First is deciding to use a questionnaire, constructing a questionnaire, administering the questionnaire, and interpreting the results of the questionnaire. Now, the big question, whether I should use the questionnaire or not, it has to be first, like you have to decide whether to use a questionnaire or should interview be better, or maybe just observing the people would be better. So that is up to you. So deciding upon general areas, like on which areas am I going to need information. So if those areas require a questionnaire, then you construct a questionnaire. Like what are the areas on which I need information, and is the information available otherwise, or do I need to construct a questionnaire? Then identifying a specific problem, like what is the problem that we want to address and why do we need to obtain information. And we need to obtain information to analyze what kind of problem it is, and then whether this information will be best available through a questionnaire. Then checking that a questionnaire is suitable. You must check it also. How do we check it? A questionnaire may be appropriate if you want to ask a definite set of questions. Like those questions will be common throughout. For all the people, the same questions would be asked, and give the respondents time to consider their replies. It's like they have it in their control to think about it and write the answer. There are more respondents than you have facilities or time to interview. Like if you need to obtain information, say more than 50 people, then it is best to have a questionnaire because it will be difficult for you to go and interview. It depends upon what kind of organization it is. So you see whether the facility or time for interview will be lesser. The respondents are widely geographically dispersed, and you neither have the time nor the finance to visit them. So maybe they are spread all over the country or even outside the country. Then you have to see whether they are geographically dispersed. The writing, reading skills of the respondents may possibly be inadequate. It could be like what kind of level the people are working on, and whether they have the writing and reading skills, whether they will be able to understand your questionnaire. Even if you construct the questionnaire, you have to bring it down to their level. The questions should be constructed in such a way that they can understand. There's no ambiguity. You have the time to construct a good instrument before you use it. So that is also important, because constructing questionnaire requires time. It requires revisiting a number of times. You have to check, you have to see, and you have to visualize the response. What if this question is asked to someone? How will they interpret it? How will they think about it? What do they think? What would they think that we should write in this? You have the production facilities available: typing, reprography, paper, etc. You have considered the problem of omission. Like, it is quite possible that people will skip some questions. If they are not able to understand, they wouldn't write anything in that, or they won't answer that. And then this facility also, you have to make out that it is, everybody may not be um, giving you an answer. It is quite possible that if the questionnaire is long, then people get, like, they neither have time, and it becomes boring for them to answer, and they take it very lightly. They think that if we don't answer it, it is all right. So that is how. Then you go about constructing a questionnaire. Once you have decided that, you have to take some steps to go about constructing it. Then you have to choose the right format for the questions. Should it be open-ended questions? Should it be yes or no? Should it be true or false? Because this is very important at this time to choose the format. What kind of, or do you want a multiple choice? Identify the frame of reference for the target group. Like, it must be, you must have a paragraph, or you must have something to identify what are the conditions, like target group, whether it is group A officers, whether it is uh, level, like lower level functionaries, or say senior management. So you have to, or it could be students also. So you have to identify the frame of reference. Then writing the questions is again a very challenging task. You must be very clear, and you should write unambiguous statements or questions. So you must think about it, plan about it, and it's necessary that you have a flow in your questions. Like, if you're asking, you can divide your questions into areas. For example, if you're asking about logistic facilities, then that should be, all questions relating to logistics should be in one area. If you're asking about design, or material, or then that should take up, all the questions related to that should be in one area. If you're asking about the delivery of the training, or if you're asking about job performance, so your areas should be distributed. And frame of reference also means that what kind of questions will you ask them? Will it be job related, performance related, or will it be training related? Then you must test the questions. You should take a sample of people and test the question, revising the questions if necessary, then test it again if necessary, then again revising it after the retest, then designing a summary sheet. You must have a ready summary sheet in which you will write that what happened when, and what did you learn from each exercise. And then organize the questionnaire. Like I mentioned earlier, uh, questions on a similar aspect should be clubbed together, like they should be at one place. Now, choosing the right format could be open response questions. We're doing it, revisiting it again, the previous slide. Open response questions used for more complex questions. And the advantage here is, like, it gives the freedom to uh, people who are answering them to write the way in which they want, because it if then they will come out fully. If you restrict them, then it is difficult for them to write. For example, if it is a restaurant questionnaire, then You may ask like, uh, did you like the food? That could be yes or no. But if you say which aspects of the food did you like or what did you like in the food, then you can leave it open for them to write their answer, and they can give you a brief in 1 or 2 sentences which is the thing that they liked, which are the things that they did not like. Closed response questions, they are used for more simple questions. Like I mentioned earlier, whether you liked it or not, that could be. Or you can have a grading scale also. The respondent has to choose from among a number of answers that have been provided. Hmm? So it could be yes or no, true or false, or it could be multiple choice also. Or it could be like that also. Somewhat very happy, somewhat happy, in between some choice, not happy, not very happy, not at all happy, and so on. This is an example of open response question. In your opinion, what new skills did you acquire through carrying out your project? So now the participant is free to write. The participant of the questionnaire is free to write what he thinks about it, and he can give an elaborate answer. Some people may choose small answers, and some people may write long answers. The closed questions can have only one answer. Hmm? So, in answering these questions, the respondent has to choose from among a number of answers that have been provided. These questions can be written in a number of ways: two-way questions, which are true or false, yes or no; multiple choice questions, it gives more choices. And then rating scales and ranking scales. Hmm? So in the rating scales, the participant can read the question that it is this way, can give marks. Ranking scales, the question, the respondent has to give a priority. The respondent is asked to place a number of statements in order. There will be a number of statements and he has to order them in accordance with his priority. Two-way questions. This type of format forces a choice. A better approach might probably be to add a third choice, like you can say do not know, but this does have inherent difficulties. Therefore, making sure that two-way questions give a realistic choice: yes, no, or it could be I do not know. Hmm? Third choice. For example, in this one, will you choose another project based on computer assisted learning? If the person didn't like the project, he may say yes. If he liked it, then he will say no. And if he's in between, he can say, I do not know. So you will know how many people are in the in between state who can leave the project and go. Hmm? So that totally depends upon what kind of information do you want. Then multiple choice questions are like this. Did you enjoy the style of learning? That is the question thrown to the person, and the person has to tick mark in in these boxes. So he may say not at all, a little, fairly, quite a lot, and so on. So that is what he may be writing. And extreme could be very much. Like it is like a polar opposite, not at all and very much. So we have rating scales which are called Likert scale and semantic differential scale. Hmm? And Likert scales give a list of statements and the respondent makes judgment on every item. The scales may vary from simple alternatives, agree, disagree, to a 10-point scale. Normally, the scales used are 3 to 6.1. Even numbered scales force a choice, and there's no central tendency. Odd number scales have a central tendency also. So I will just share with you the scales here. Just excuse me. I will show you the scales. This is the Likert scale. It could be a 10-point or lesser point scales, 3 to 6-point scales also. This is a odd numbered scale in the example. The person has to tick mark the correct choice here, and it could be the rating could be given. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is given, and you can calculate based upon that. So, how relevant do you think this topic is to your everyday job? This is a question that has been thrown to the participants, and the person has a choice between all these. Among all these, very relevant, quite relevant, relevant, a little relevant, not at all relevant. So that is how the person can write it, and they can give a choice. Then we have something which is called semantic or differential scales. Semantic differential skills are thought to be useful when the respondents are likely to have strong opinions. It represents a general reaction to the person, some object, or materials it is focusing on. The vocabulary must, of course, be appropriate for the respondents. It is based on the use of paired adjectives, bipolar opposites, written on either side of the page with 5, 6, or 7 possible choices in between. The pairs should be arranged so that the positive and negative adjectives are not all on right or left. If the same pairs are used in a number of items, they should be in the same order. The score is obtained by giving 0 for the most negative response and 6 for the most positive on a 7 position scale. 0 is used so that they can be displayed graphically with a base 0 on the graph. Otherwise, it will be difficult to put it graphically. Then the scores are added and we give a combined score for that item. Now, this is the example for semantic. The help and advice given to tackle the project was, now the participant has to choose. There are 4 questions. It is informative or uninformative. These are bipolar opposites. Like, it could be useful. You can even say useful or useless. These are bipolar opposites. So the person has to choose it here, and this one will get 0 and this one will get 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, this informative will get 7, and there could be choices in between too. If he takes it here, you just give a number. It could be boring or interesting, superficial or profound, helpful or unhelpful. So these are the scales that are Likert and semantic. In semantic, the difference is that you have bipolar opposites, whereas in Likert, you can have different choices. So these are a common type of questionnaires that we rating scales that we use. Now, the next step is to administer the questionnaire. Now, you have prepared your questionnaire, and now it is time to give the people a feel of the questionnaire. So, asking the respondent's name may give answers less farther right than if the option of anonymity is given. If you ask them that there's no need to write your name and be frank and give your candid opinion, then people are more likely to come forward with the real information they want to share. Otherwise, people do hesitate in writing down. They want to write only goody goody answers, which if the management sees, they don't catch them and they don't harass them. So that is what the psychology goes like. So it's a good option to give anonymity to the writer. However, the respondent's name allows for encouragement of a higher response rate to questionnaires. If you ask them to write their names, you wouldn't know whether they have who has answered and who has not answered. If you have the names written, then you know how many people and who is left out, who is the person who has not given a reply or who has not filled up the questionnaire, and it is easier to follow up if you have the names on the questionnaire. Then you have to interpret the results of the questionnaire. Now again, there is no magic formula for this to interpret the results, but you can use some clues like does the information match up with their objectives? Like, what did you start with? Did it match? Did you find what was expected, or is it something opposite? Hmm? Maybe you are asking questions about a particular training and you're hoping that the training would be very, very good, but the participants gave you just the opposite answers for particular areas of the training. Can the information be compared with a similar or related study or investigation? Hmm? If you have a pre-existing investigation or something which is commoner, if you have a similar study, then does it match? Hmm? Does the information appear complete enough to aid deciding course of action? Like, you might have made the questionnaire, you thought it is complete, but when you analyze it, you realize that there could be something else too. Then you have to prepare a report and submit the report. So friends, let's go on to the next part of our study, and that is the models of evaluation. The first model that we are going to study is the Kirkpatrick model. This is actually the most common model. Actually, these are the authors who attempted evaluation, and the activities they uh, did, the exercise that they did, they have tried to put them in some steps. They've tried to put them into some steps, and they try to tell that how evaluation can be taken up, how to go about evaluating things, and it makes an evaluator's life much more easier if you follow a particular model. Now, Kirkpatrick medal is after Professor Donald Kirkpatrick, and he published it in his book in 1959. And later, actually, the model came up in 1959, but his book came up in evaluating training programs, and all his ideas and everything that he put up in the model, it came up much later in his book called Evaluating Training Programs in 1994. So it was at that time that he published his book. And this is the most widely used model even today. And you will realize that there are similarities. Even if some models have come up later to Kirkpatrick model, there are a number of similarities to the Kirkpatrick model. Now, later his son, when James and his mother, Wendy, reviewed and updated the actual theory. Because, always when something comes up, people are criticizing it also, people are finding faults also. Then they come up with, in 2016, they reviewed it and updated the actual theory by introducing New World Kirkpatrick model as an update. And if you will see around, many organizations are using this only. Excuse me. Yeah. So the new nowadays, even New World Kirkpatrick model is very popular. Many organizations are using it, and this is the model that you are seeing on the screen. It talks about 4 levels. Hmm? And uh, it is like a pyramid, and the thing is to start with the base, and definitely there's a link between all the levels. Hmm. Hmm. Mostly we start with reaction, and there are many people involved in it, and that level begins with completion of the training. So the main question that you ask is, did the learners enjoy the training? Mind you that enjoyment here involves not just having fun in the training, it also means learning something interesting, something which has helped them to increase their performance or help them to improve themselves in some way. Then he suggests that level 2 is evaluation of learning. And in this level, the evaluator tends to understand or obtain information about transfer of learning. Did learning transfer occur? Whatever the classroom training happened or whatever online training was taught, did the participants transfer it to their job? Or is that actionable? Is that can that be applied in their jobs? And then it goes to the third level, that is called impact level. Nowadays, people call it impact. In some places, you might read it as behavior, the behavior level. So, did the training change the behavior? Hmm? By behavior, we mean the knowledge, skills, and attitude of the participants. After undergoing the training, did the participant have any improve, improvement in his performance? That is what is measured here at this level. And at the results level, that is the ultimate level in Kirkpatrick model, did the training influence performance of the workforce of that, say, that level, that cadre of the organization? For example, it was a supervisor's training. So, did the training influence the performance of all the supervisors and the performance of the organization also? So, if you look at this as we move upwards to the fourth level, the scope of evaluation broadens. There will be more people covered, there will be more activities that are happening, and generally, the level 3 and 4 happen in the organization where the people are working. And reaction level and learning level, more or less, they will be in the classroom, before the training, during the training, after the training, mostly. So, this is the Kirkpatrick model. And let us have a look again at the levels. Level 1 trends to measure the reaction. To what extent did the delegates react favorably to the training course? Here we also try to measure whether the objectives of the training that we set were met after completion of the course. Level 2 tests the learning. To what degree did the delegates acquire the intended knowledge? Now, here you will be administering tests, examinations, etc. to measure that. The skills and attitude as set out in the course objectives based on their participation in the training. So, behavior, as I mentioned earlier, includes knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So, that was set out in the course objectives based on their participation in the training. At level 3, we try to measure the behavior or see the impact of the training. To what degree did the delegates apply what they have learned on the course when they are back at work? And level 4 tells you the result. You evaluate the results. To what degree did targeted outcomes occur as a result of the training course? Now, every organization has a organization goal, and out of those goals, you might have shortlisted something for which the training is being provided. So, are the outcomes there that we've started with, that we wanted for our organization? Huh? So, has the training course helped us to get that? And the subsequent work based reinforcement of the training. So, what kind of results are we getting? And if you look at it more closely, for reaction level, you will do it immediately during the course, after the course, etc. And learning also will not be done like not immediately, but you can give them tests and something, and it can be some a little later also, but it can be done immediately also. Mostly these two levels are done after the training is like not the training has not had a lot of time when it completed, like immediately after the training. And level 3 and to do the level 3 and level 4 evaluation, you require some time for the effects of the training to come to the participants and to the organization. Only then you can do level 3 and level 4. Let's have a look at reaction level. So, some of the questions, these are only examples, like what is the number one goal of your training? For example, you started with the number one goal was like you will write it in your aim to improve the typing speed of my participants, or participants will be unable to will be able to operate this machine. There could be any goal. So the three metrics could help you decide how well they received it, how engaged the audience was during your training, how much contribution did they put in, and how actively did they do that, how was their overall reaction to your training. So these are the basic things that you need to ask when you're doing reaction level 1. Not only you can get feedback on the training, it would also help you greatly improve your next training. This is because you can easily identify significant topics that you might have missed by any chance. So reaction level 1 is a very important level, and it also forms a basis for other levels. You can ask the following questions to the training. These are only illustrative. These are not the questions that you have to ask. Like there could be some other questions also that may come to your way. Do you think the training was successful? Would you recommend this training to others in your unit? If anything, naturally we think about what we like. For example, if you go and enjoy a movie, you will try to tell your friends, your relatives about that movie. Oh yes, it was so good, go and watch it, or watch it on the Netflix. So similarly for training also, if you like it, you will tell your colleagues, you will tell other employees, oh, I learned it through this training and it gives us a lot. So if anything, what would you change about this class? And that also you will tell, and why. There would, of course, there will not be all good things only, and there could be bad things also, so you will have to tell. In your opinions, what are the strong and weak points of this class? So you have to tell that. Strong points, weak points. Did the training activities, exercises engage you? Was it really helpful? What could be the three most valuable stuff that you learned by attending this training? Or what was the takeaway from the training? How good or bad were the venue? Because that is an important part in learning. The environment is also very important for enabling any human being to learn better. How good or bad was the presentation style? From this training program, how much do you think you can apply at your job? Hmm? How much and what kind of support might you need when applying the learned knowledge at your job? Hmm? So these are the questions that you can think of putting, or you can frame your questions around these ideas or concepts. Then we come to the learning 2 level. So here the evaluator measures what the trainees have or have not learned from your training. Now, this is the trainer putting the question. So there is one new and innovative addition in the new world version, which also measures how the trainees think they can do things differently, how confidently they feel in that aspect, and what the source of their motivation is. As a result, you can assess how training has imparted skills and knowledge to them, their self-confidence and determination. As a rule of thumb, it is good to evaluate these areas before and after the training. To do it effectively, keep your training objectives measurable. A good way to do that is to have a conversation or quick question answer sessions with the trainings. Actually, when you hold a question answer session or have a face to face conversation, you can look at their faces and understand what they feel. Hmm? This would help you assess their knowledge level, attitudes, and skill level as well. Use formative or summative assessments, objective or subjective tests. I hope you remember what is formative or summative assessment. We discussed it in the last session. Can anybody throw a light on what is formative or summative assessment? Participants? Can anybody tell me what is what is the difference between formative or summative assessment? Are you listening?
Good morning, ma'am. This is Dhananjay here.
Yeah, tell me then.
May I answer?
Please do.
Ma'am, the formative assessments is when the training is going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the assessment happens. And we are talking about the summative ones. It is at the end of the training session.
That really so? Anybody else? Anybody else? Did any of you attend the last session? Actually, formative assessment could be at the end of training also. And it could be during the training also, before the training also. Formative assessment is something when, as the name suggests, when the participant is forming, when you're forming the thing. Formative means that it is not a conclusive assessment. You're not declaring somebody pass or fail. You're just trying to either take a feedback, how the participants are learning, or to make them understand some more concepts. Because when you put questions to people, then they think about it and they try to answer. And they also try to recall what they have already learned. So formative assessment is something like informal. It could be written formal also, but you do not pass or fail the people. For example, when you are running a course, you give them a small test to test their knowledge, how far we have learned. And it could be at the end of the training also, like you give a full test of what they are, what they have learned, but you do not tell them that you have passed or failed. You just discuss the questions and help them to learn it. In summative assessments, it could be during the course also, and it could be at the end of the course also. Summative means when you are concluding that whether they have passed or they have failed. When you're doing it during the course, it could be after end of a module, and the person goes to the next module only when the person has completed the test and he has qualified for the next module. Otherwise, he cannot go to the next module if he has not completed it. So summative assessment is something that tells that declares pass or fail. This is the difference. Am I making sense? Are you people able to understand the difference?
Yes, ma'am.
Summative is when we declare pass or fail. For example, trainings related to promotions or confirmations. Like if you pass this training, only at the end of the training, the probationers will be confirmed. Or if you pass this training, only then you will be promoted. So that objective is you have objective test items. Subjective is when you have open-ended writings, you can write open-ended answers. You can write elaborate answers. Objective is when you either give one-liners or you make multiple choice questions, yes, no questions or something like that. Objective is just tick marking or something. Let us move on to the next level, that is called the behavior level, level 3. This level tests how much trainees apply the training received to their job. They focus on developing processes that boost, encourage, reward positive behavioral changes. Required drivers, trainee uses newly learned skill. And if a trainee uses the newly learned skill effectively, highlight them and appreciate her for it. Measure change in behavior 3 months after the training. It could be 3 months. If the training is more intense, it could be after 4 months or 6
Good morning,
months.
ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. Just to interrupt you, sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Somendra here.
yes, Amin. Tell me.
Ma'am, most of the training is done not to pass or fail the guys. Most of the training is to develop their skill, knowledge, and behavior.
Okay.
And mostly it is not to promote a guy or guy. Mostly it is not to promote a guy. It is just
Okay.
it is just to scale level.
Okay.
So as per me, submissive can be the final test and informative the pre-test. What we are doing.
Look, Mr. Somendra, if you have not seen any trainings where people are declared pass or fail, that does not mean that they do not exist. Okay.
I'm not
They do
saying that.
exist. Promotion, career related trainings are there. And after the training, an exam is held, and if people are not able to pass it, that is like they're not promoted. You are right. In most of the trainings, it is not. But the difference between summative and formative is that at in the summative training, summative assessment, you declare the person pass or fail, and if you do not declare him pass or fail, then you're not doing the summative assessment. You're doing the formative assessment. Am I making myself clear?
Okay. Actually, as per my understanding, what we are doing, I am already a trainer, I'm a corporate trainer. So what we are doing in the formative assessment, we check the current status of his knowledge. So we take a pre-test kind of thing. Even in their introduction part, we come to a reaction phase of what we are learning to this Kirkpatrick model, where we understand the current status of the participants. So in formative, we just consider at what levels they are, and in the summative, when we finally we take some assessments, so we come to know what is the level they have already crossed now, at what level now they are. So they knowing, understanding the gap before the training or start of the training and post the training.
Mrs. Sumendra, where are you
Theoretically.
training? Where are you
Theoretic-
training?
I'm in Himalaya, ma'am.
Himalaya Bhavan.
Himalaya Baby Care.
Okay. I think it's a good idea to revisit it. And there's a handout if you are like, the Government of India trainings, Department of Person Training runs a number of training. And even in the glossary of training terms, you may find this term. So that is the difference that is the trainers or the behavioral scientists tell between the summative assessment and formative assessment, what I'm telling you. I think it is a good idea to revisit it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, Bhumi here.
Can I come here?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so ma'am, I mean, I just wanted to say specifically to Somendra's query that I do understand that many trainings may not have this specific criteria of pass and fail.
Yes.
When a summative is there, but then specifically with the new hire trainings, trainings. In that case, there needs to be an assessment of what their level is, so that they can be, before they are enrolled on the job. That are most of the times that we see in the organizations, that during the induction trainings or orientations, like which goes on anywhere till 2 months. It happens in most of the companies where they prolong it and have a summative assessment. Formative is always there, as you said, but summative get to know whether the person is now familiar with not only just the guidelines and policies, but also through all the products and services that are being that he or she is being introduced with. Does he have the running knowledge? I mean, at least a little knowledge, theoretical background of that before they are placed on the job.
Okay, I would like to also add that Somendra, I think you should be really open to experiences of other organizations. In Army, at every level, there is a long, training course, and passing of the training course is absolutely must for your beings considered for promotion to higher level. Even for brigadier level, if they have to move to major general, there is a 1 year long program, and in that 1 year long program they have to pass, and or not only pass, they are assessed also, and based on that assessment there is a promotability is decided. And what Bhumi had said, that works very well for the long duration induction programs. For example, in NTPC, you have engineering trainees, and they go through 1 year program. If they do not pass all the modules correctly, either their training is extended or they might, in some cases, terminated also. So summative assessment is important in many organizations. Only thing is that in many of the corporates, commercial organizations, the training has not moved to that level where summative assessment is being made as part of the regular practice. So that's the difference. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I agreed. I just wanted to know just one clarification. Are we going to define this formative and summative only on the basis of pass or fail? Because most of
that is the final issue. The question is not only pass or fail. The question is also what is the level of attainment that has been there. For example, from the brigadier level to major general level, there is this National Defense College in Delhi, which conducts this 1 year long program. And your performance in that could be, in fact, not just pass or fail. Pass or fail is one issue, but your performance in that might ultimately decide whether you get promoted to the post of major general or not, because those detailed analysis or detailed performance assessment is available to the board, which makes the decision about the promotion. So there is a very rigorous thing. And let me also tell you that these type of detailed reports, whether coming from assessment center or whether they are coming from a training program, are also available in most of the multinational organizations. And in the multinational organization, their decision about who is high potential and who is average potential. It depends essentially on this, and promotability or promotions do take into account those decisions taken during the training program, also, or reports which get generated from the assessment center or the development center. So that's what I would like to share with you, that let's also understand domestic organizations, domestic private organizations have not yet achieved a good level of I would say in training, in terms of sort of the quality of training, etc. Of course, there have been some examples in past. For example, DCM had achieved it at a higher level, but today commercially they are not doing very well. But then similarly in Tata Group also. So what your experience is of one organization, you should be open to understanding from other organizations also. Okay, that's the advantage that you get when you are in a program like this in ISTD. You really learn from experiences of many other participants, and also.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Actually, I wanted to understand if on the learning stage only, if you are doing the summative and we are passing or fail somebody, so then how come we reach to the result level, the fourth level of assessment? Because mostly in the corporates, pass or fail or promotion is based on their performance, not on the basis of their performance in a training program.
Mr. Somendra, can I, sorry, I'm interrupting you here,
Yeah.
but please let me explain it. In the formative, these are only kinds of assessment, and the organization has a choice of choosing the kind of assessment based upon the participants. For example, for middle level management or higher level management, you may not choose the pass or fail method summative, because here conceptual knowledge becomes more important. But we don't need to go very far. In the foundation course in Government of India, mostly we have this summative assessment, because that is the starting level, and their passing and failing is important, because then the person, if he is not able to pass, of course he will not be able to complete his probation, but he will also have to undergo a remedial training. And then what I wanted to make a point clear to you is, it does not have a link with moving on to the next level of the model. Okay. It's, in some organizations, as Mr. Kaushal mentioned, it is true that we have promotions linked to it. For example, if you have the pilot's training, nobody will want to sit in a plane in which the pilot has not passed the test. For the driving license, you really should not have people who have not passed the test and given the license, isn't it? They should not be on the roads. So these are at some places it is essential to have summative, where people are told that yes, after the pilot's training you have passed it and he is ready to fly the plane. So it totally depends upon the kind of the training that the person undergoes. And if you have the specific query whether summative, the definition of summative and formative is based upon passing or failing, then a clear answer to that is yes. And these terms you will be able to find in glossary of training terms. And we are just doing the levels, like, yes, at some places it may not be desirable to have the summative assessment. At all the trainings, in all the trainings, it may not be desirable to have that. But in some trainings, you will really need it.
So, Ms. Bhattagar,
Am I making sense here now?
Yeah, discussion is very long. We should move ahead further. Still, I am not convinced on the basis only pass
That
or
is
fail.
all right. That
Yeah.
is all right. We can
Yeah.
have another question answer sessions, and you can really check your knowledge.
I'm
Even
not at all convinced with this definition.
okay. You are.
Yeah, maybe
That is
maybe
welcome. That is welcome.
yeah, maybe in terms of dictionary terms, we can find it okay.
Actually,
Formative.
sometimes, Mr. Somendra, we have to unlearn some concepts to learn new concepts. Okay. So that is all right. Even if you're not agreeing with, even with our disagreement, shall we move on from
This
here?
means you are discouraging the questioning.
No, I am not at
We are
all.
discussing questionnaire and you are discouraging. You are not. It seems you are also not open to listen.
Okay. I will check myself. I will recheck it. Will that satisfy you? I will also recheck it.
It doesn't matter satisfaction or dissatisfaction.
No, you are saying I'm not open to questioning. I'm still here and you can ask me even more questions if there are any questions left.
Ms. Bhatnagar,
Yes.
may I ask you one question related to what you already explained?
Please do. Please do.
Thank you very much. So yes, I just wanted to be clear on one point where, I mean, those are kind of, as you said, that, you know, it depends on the kind of training, whether an organization would go for the ultimate summative assessment or it would just try to go for formative. And I do agree with that because I have been through a lot of such trainings. But what I wanted to know for our examination and also learning purpose is whether a test, I mean, this summative assessment is not required in those trainings or is kept over period of time, which may lengthen after the training, where the results are to be seen on the based on the job performances. I just wanted to, do I make myself clear or should I repeat the question?
Even look, both the formative and summative assessments can be done on the job training, even in the classroom training. Okay?
Formative, I do understand. I'm talking just about summative to make myself clear.
For example, it again depends upon what kind of performance is there if you're doing it on the job training. For example, in a factory where cars are produced,
Okay.
and the people have been trained in some functioning of the engine. And if that person is not able to do it, and that is important because he will not be able to produce efficient engines, he may produce defective engines, then yes, it will be necessary to do a summative assessment at the job performance level also.
Right. Thank you very much for clearing this. I just wanted to know that whether the summative assessment is to be done at the end of the training or it can also extend to the later times as well. Just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you very much.
There is a computer-based program where you learn the Microsoft Office, various programs of the Microsoft Office, and this is CBT, computer-based training. A person has to undergo one module and then he goes to the next module. Passing of the first module is necessary to go on to the next module, and the person will earn his certificate only after the 7 modules are complete. So
yes,
he
sorry to interrupt. I'm undergoing one of such things. That is the reason I asked you about it.
So it could be even during the training.
Okay, so summative can be like module wise, where supposedly I'm undergoing one of the Microsoft trainings where there are 8 modules in total. So, you know, I do understand your concept now. Thank you very much for, you know, elaborating.
Ma'am, this is Dhananjaya. Can you, ma'am, please share L1 slide with us, please? Once again.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Here. Is this the one you wanted to see?
Yes, ma'am. That's all. Thank you, ma'am.
So any other questions, Mr. Sumendra? Shall we move on from here?
No, ma'am. Thank you. I just wanted to say the main theme of my thing was we should not just generalize it in terms of pass or fail.
I will check it. Will check it. But this is the concept. I, as a trainer for evaluation in this training program, I have to tell you what is the concept. So that is the concept.
Because as a trainer, it could be dangerous for a corporate trainer in summative assessment if the ratio of failing is high. Suppose 20 or 30% is going to fail, then there will be a question on the trainer only. So summative question then can be manipulated.
I agree with you here. And many organizations, again, it depends upon the level of the participants and the kind of outcome that you want from the training. So many of the organizations, just because of this reason, they don't go in for summative training, and that is summative assessment, and that is fine. That is fine. Because, you know, at higher levels at middle management level, for example, conceptual knowledge is very important. And mostly here, assessments are subjective and they're not objective. So in subjective assessments, it is very difficult to have a model answer. And you cannot, like one person who is giving an answer cannot be completely right. So it is very difficult to judge whether this answer is correct or the other answer is correct. So here having a summative assessment would be disastrous. Huh?
Yeah.
So this
Actually,
is
what happens if we are giving a training? I'm into the sales kind of training.
all
So
right.
sales, what happens in sales, this is a fact. Most of the time we have seen that some of the guys, they are very good in the training part. They are doing very good in training. When it comes to sales, they are not so good. And there are some
Because
guys, there are
transfer of
some,
learning has not happened there, it seems.
yeah, maybe the issue of transfer of learning, but before training, most of them, they might have doing very well in the training. They may not do, they may not perform very well in the theoretic papers and all.
Yeah, then you will have to assess what are the other factors other than the training that could be responsible. Or is it really training? Do they need remedial
That's
training?
why I tell you, Kiri, we cannot pass or fail someone on the basis of training only for the promotion, at least for the promotion.
Okay, let us move on from here. So shall we, have you seen the slide now? Is there any other question on this slide? Somebody asked me to show the first slide, level 1 slide. Is there any
No,
question
ma'am.
on this?
No, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome. So shall we move on to the next item now? We will go on to behavior level 3. Friends, we are discussing the Kirkpatrick model. We have covered the level 1 reaction level, the level 2 learning level, where we assess, the evaluator's job is to assess the value of the training project or training program, assess the working, the performance, etc. So at level 3, behavior, that is the skill, knowledge, and attitude, that is the thing that is being tested. So this level tests how much trainees apply the training received to their job. And what we do here is we focus on developing processes that boost, encourage, and reward positive behavioral changes. Okay. So this is important to see what are the processes that are encouraging and rewarding and help in positive behavioral changes. What are the drivers that are required if a trainee uses the newly learned skill effectively? Does he require motivation? Does he require a good environment? Does he require support from the management, etc.? We highlight them and appreciate the trainee for it. We measure change in behavior mostly 3 months after the training. It could be a little later depending upon the kind of training that you have imparted. So if it is a machine training, then naturally you will try to do it much earlier than the 3 months. Then good ways here are conducting interviews. Observations are very important here. They are the most effective tools. And asking the participants, seeing their behavior, how they are working, how they are doing, performing, these are the important tools at this place. Then we move on to the results level, that is level 4. Here actually the focus is on the organization as a whole. And it is regarded as the primary goal of the program, what we started with, what we really wanted to happen after the training was given. You determine the overall success of the training based on critical business objectives. So, decreased spending, like are we spending much less than we were before on our resources? Are our employees performing much better? Are we getting greater returns on investment? Are we getting better quality of products, more work efficiency in employees, less iteration, less absenteeism, etc.? These are the things that we measure. This is the most time consuming and really costly process. You may hire experts here. You may require more number of people, more activities are required in this, more resources are required. It is challenging to predict which advantages, outcomes, and results are associated with the training. Hmm? And sad to say that most of the organizations are limited to the level 1 and level 2 of the Kirkpatrick level model. Uh, Most of the organizations do not move on to the third and the fourth level. It's very, very less in percentage. And in most of the organizations, I have seen that even sometimes even reaction level is very perfunctorily done. They just assess, they just ask the participants upon the trainer's performance, logistics, etc. But they do not move on to this is also happening. But it is a very, very important thing to do. We need they need effective ways to evaluate the outcomes in the longer run. And then another thing is communicating, making it known. Results must be communicated to all stakeholders. In fact, if you look up at the annual reports of the organization, their financial statements, they gives you that reveals a number of things about the progress of the organization vis-a-vis, or the trends that the organization is showing, how the organization has fared over the years. Now, there is a level 4 strategy to have an effective evaluation and effective training, and that is define the final results. It's important to have something listed with you and break down this to behavior that will drive the results. Like you're moving like backwards, sort of. First, you define the final results, what you really want, and then you break down the behavior that will drive the results. What behavior you want? That is, behavior means knowledge, skills, and attitude that will drive the result, that will let you to the results. Then finally, break those down to learning objectives that will drive. What learning objectives should we have which will help us to reach that behavior? This helps in prioritizing the goals and ultimately outcomes of level 4. Now let us see what are the outcomes. We have high level of motivation among the employees if we do the level 4. We have reduced work lags and procrastination. We have more sales. These are only illustrative, and they're not this is not the exhaustive list. It could be in a particular organizations, there could be organizational specific outcomes too. Higher level of customer service or customer satisfaction, greater and more efficient production, higher workers retention and reduced workers complaints. So these are the things that these are only illustrative. Customer complaints, maybe there is a show, the results show that there are lesser customer complaints. There are some challenges in using the Kirkpatrick's model. Like in every other thing that we use, it gives us many good things, but there will be challenges too. All levels may not be relevant for all trainings. For example, in gender issues training or Right to Information Act training, all levels may not be relevant for all the trainings. Like only reaction level may be helpful in gender issues training. And you can, of course, it can go on to level 2, level 3 also to see that you are getting lesser number of complaints on the POSH Act in your IC organization, but you don't get an immediate insight into that. It is difficult to choose the right metrics and get the right result at level 4. And to choose the right metrics and right results, you should involve the stakeholders. The metric should drive business decisions and also determine the value of program for those who funded them. Check the relevancy of the metric and see if the performance indicators are inside the scope of the project. So carefully review how the metric can be connected to the key performance indicators. Always ensure that there is enough data available to draw conclusions. Data is important for data integrity and accurate insight. So here, obtaining information and using the right tools is very, very important. And training management information system is a tool that will take prominence here. Your annual reports and your financial statements, etc. Then friends, let us move on to another model that is called the Kaido model. The Kaido model stands for context, input, reaction, and output. It's not very popular, not so much popular as the Kirkpatrick model, but organizations can choose this one also if they wish so. It was developed by Warr, Bird, and Rackham and published in 1970 in their book Evaluation of Management Training. The Kaido model is specifically aimed at evaluating management trainings. And it's a hierarchical model. And levels, there are again 4 levels in this. The first one is the context evaluation. And second one is input evaluation. Third one is reaction evaluation. And fourth is output or outcome evaluation. So these are the 4 models we will have. These are the 4 levels. We will have look at them. We will look at them one by one. Context evaluation. It assesses the operational situation that a business or organization finds itself in. So, what do we see in the context is what is the environment of the organization? How many competitors are there? What are the competitors do? What we do is important, but what others are doing is also very important. Helps in identifying training needs and objectives. And generally, mainly it is the needs analysis that is inbuilt into this evaluation. Needs analysis gives list of factors that may impact training effectiveness. Performance gaps are identified because of that. Effectiveness is something, a training is called effective if after the training, the participants are able to improve their performance to a desired standard. The standard has been put by the organization, and the organization says that my employees should have this much level of performance. And if the training is able to give them that level of performance, then it is an effective training. So here what we do is a need analysis is done, and it gives list of factors that will impact training effectiveness, like that will increase the performance. Now, needs are identified at 3 levels in this context evaluation level. The ultimate objective. What is the ultimate objective of the organization for this training program? To eliminate an organizational deficiency. It could be like low sales figure, it could be low productivity, or it could be poor customer service. Then there could be intermediate objectives. Require a change in employees' work behavior to achieve ultimate objective. And then the immediate objective, that is acquiring new skills and knowledge as a result of the training or changing employees' attitude and then behavior. So you need to get the immediate objectives, you need to get the intermediate objective, and that will lead you to the ultimate objective. So these are the 3 needs that are identified, like 3 ways we identify need. At immediately what we require, then intermediate, how to employees behavior, work behavior is changed so that we get the ultimate objective. Then we have input evaluation, that is the second level, choosing best training intervention. So the trainings that can lead you to your ultimate objective. Possible training techniques and methods, evaluate design, planning, management, and delivery of the training course, analyze the organization's resources, and determine how these resources can best be used to achieve the desired objective. Okay. Mhm. Then there is reaction evaluation, that is, training is finished and collecting views and suggestions of the participants about the training they received. Then the reactions are collected on program content, approach, value that has been added to their whatever value, maybe to knowledge, maybe to skill, maybe to behavior, maybe to attitude. So information here is to find ways to improve the training program. How can we improve the training program? By reaction evaluation. Then the last level is outcome. Results of the training are presented at 3 different levels. First is immediate, how the trainees got on. That is similar to the reaction level that the Kirkpatrick model says, how the trainees got on and whether they managed to complete the training successfully. Intermediate takes some time, like the training was done and some time has taken to change, like to improve the performance. Intermediaries take some time, changes to the course design or acquiring new training. Naturally, it will depend upon the first level reaction, like what happened, what they told you in the first immediate outcome that would be applied for the intermediate, changing in course design, acquiring new training resources, or even changing the, like they will tell you how our job performance would be better, how we will be applying this knowledge. Then the ultimate level is main goals for the organization, ones that have a far-reaching impact on the organizations. So whatever they learned, how has the performance changed, and how are the main goals of the organization are met. Now, outcomes can be measured at the learner level, the workplace level, the team or department level, or the business level. So these are the places where you can measure that, the outcome. So there is one example by which I have tried to explain the Cairo model to you. For example, there's a software company specializing in management software, and it is looking to find ways to boost their sales. They decide to use the Cairo model to develop their plans, set their goals, and choose the right training course. So their objective is to boost the sales. Now, in stage 1, they will do the context evaluation. They determine the training needs and then develop the objectives that help the company meet its goal of improving the sales. To identify the lack of product knowledge of their sales teams have the ultimate objective is to improve software sales. Intermediate objective is to encourage sales staff to research the latest software updates and developments. And immediate objective is to boost product knowledge among sales team members. That is the context evaluation. Then in the stage 2, the same organization is doing the input evaluation, and they analyze various training courses and weigh up the costs and length of each. They will try to see whether it is an efficient training, it is an effective training or not. They will also determine which course would best achieve their desired objective based on their budgetary constraints and other requirements. Then the stage 3 is the reaction evaluation of the Cairo model. And here sales team members have to complete a survey or questionnaire. And the questionnaire, after administration of questionnaire, you will analyze and interpret the data. And data from this evaluation would be used to help the company decide whether the training offered value for money and what changes may be made to future training sessions. whether the conditions for learning were present in the training or not. Then the fourth stage of the Cairo model will be the outcome stage and the learning and its impact on the employee's work. What happened as a direct result of the training and whether the managers were implementing the tools and techniques they learned during their working hours. Senior managers could investigate an organization's revenue to see whether the sales figures had improved. And managers would present results from the training and determine whether the ultimate level, intermediate level and immediate goals were met or not. So that is how one can apply the Cairo model to one's organization. So we will, friends, I will stop my presentation here. And if you have any questions, you're welcome. And we will, I will be like meeting you in the next Sunday. And we will start with the other models, and return on investment model will be the next topic. So any questions are welcome. Otherwise, I'll call this off.
Ma'am, I have a question. Hello.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Ma'am, this is Chandan from Delhi chapter. Ma'am,
Yeah.
my question is like, what kind of questions can we expect in our semester exam related to this? Like, yeah. Thanks. I don't want to tell you the actual answer questions, but yeah, it's
Why don't you see the last, do you have any last year's papers available? Just have a look at them. They will be like, I don't know, because I'm not setting the paper, so I can't really tell you. But I think there are case studies, 3 case studies or 2 case studies that you have to do. They are longish. They give you a case study and then they give you questions beneath it. And then you have short answer questions also. The question paper, I think, is in part A and B. Part A has some subjective questions, and part B starts with the notes, like short notes, which are 5 marks each. And then you have the case studies, and case studies is there, and you some questions based on the case studies are asked. So that is the kind of format I think we're following.
So, ma'am, basically,
I can't really predict what kind of question the examiner
that's
will ask
okay.
you.
That's okay. So, ma'am, like for example, you have been talking about too many models over here, right? So again, these models also.
I have talked about only 2 models right now, Kirkpatrick and Cairo model. If you look at your books, they are there in the books also. I have customized this training classes, your diploma ISTD classes, based upon the course curriculum you have. Okay.
Okay. Fine. Thank you, ma'am. Really, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Good morning, ma'am. Soumya here.
Good morning. Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, I would like to know that if we are talking about this Cairo model, so ma'am, which type of specific, can you please tell us which type of specific trainings from which field can be given for this type of evaluation?
Tell you the
In
truth,
which type of specific fields
to tell you the truth, I'm I've not seen people using the Cairo model much. It may be popular in the West, and management trainings, you know, for example, you want to do the sales training, or you want to do some marketing, improving the marketing skills, or if you want to do, say, a motivation, that those kinds of trainings, I think. Management trainings, mostly it is suited for management trainings.
Basically, management development programs can be.
Yes. I think so. But I haven't, Kirkpatrick model is the most versatile and most commonly used.
Yes, ma'am. Kirkpatrick, so we have used multiple times.
And that gives you a ready, like, sort of a stepwise way to go about it. But our purpose here is to make you aware of the whatever is available in the market. Like, you can, this is also available. If you, it suits your training more, then you can use this. For example, if you want to have more emphasis on training needs analysis, So you haven't done any training needs analysis, then you can choose the Cairo model. Because if you look closely at it, it is the first level is more related to training needs analysis, isn't it? So
Yes, ma'am.
so that is up to the organization. But again, the Kirkpatrick model is the most popular model.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So I think, can we call it a day now? And happy learning to you, and wish you a very happy Holi. All of you enjoy
Same
your
to
Happy Holi,
ma'am.
ma'am. Same to you. Thank
forget
you for the
about
Stay
the
session.
safe, ma'am.
plan and forget about everything. Enjoy your Holi. Then we will meet again on the next Sunday.
Thank you, Nancy.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.